Addressing lawmakers in Germany's parliament Thursday, Chancellor Angela Merkel issued the strongest threat yet to Moscow.
Wenn Russland seinen Kurs der letzten Wochen fortsetzt, dann wäre das nicht nur eine Katastrophe für die Ukraine. Dann empfinden wir das nicht nur auch als Nachbarstaaten.
If Russia continues on its course of the past weeks, it would not only be a catastrophe for Ukraine. We would see it as neighbors of Russia as a threat. It would not only change the European Union's relationship with Russia. No, this would also cause massive damage to Russia, economically and politically.
Wie politisch.
Chancellor Merkel ruled out any military action. She dismissed Russia's claims that Crimea's bid to break away from Ukraine could be compared to Kosovo's independence from Serbia.
One thing has to be completely clear. The territorial integrity of Ukraine cannot be put in question.
Ms. Merkel's hardline stance marks a departure from her previously cautious approach to Russia, says Professor Alan Riley, an expert on EU-Russia relations at City University in London.
What we're seeing is a grave Western concern that President Putin may be willing to go a lot further. Would we have some form of Afghanistan-style guerrilla war in Europe?
At stake for Berlin are deep economic and trade links with Moscow. Russia says it would retaliate to any sanctions. Germany gets 40% of its gas from Russia. But Europe could quickly reduce that dependence and deprive Moscow of revenue, says Riley.
2/3 of Gazprom's revenue comes from the 1/3 of gas it produces that it sells into the European Union. So that's about 10% of federal tax revenue. If you cut off the lifelines of those large state companies or state-influenced companies from the Western capital markets, that would have an impact.
President Vladimir Putin will be gambling that the threats from Chancellor Merkel are just rhetoric, says risk analyst Elizabeth Stevens of insurance brokers Jardine Lloyd Thompson in London.
If we go back to 2008, when Russia was involved in the war with Georgia, the West issued strong condemnation. The following year, the Americans announced a reset in relations with Russia. Everything was supposed to move forward on a positive footing. So I think Putin can rest assured any sanctions that will be imposed will be very weak.
Analysts say Chancellor Merkel, a fluent Russian speaker, had been Europe's prime dialogue partner with President Putin. Germany now appears willing to use its diplomatic and economic muscle to turn up the heat on Moscow. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.